Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Monday Mashup. It is Monday, and I am joined by my partners in crime on the podcasting. As always, Dazzler, how are we, Darren?
Feel like I got mashed up watching that game yesterday, Nolan.
But you must feel a little bit better today.
Not really. I'm still on the alcohol.
Very nice. Also joining us, who
always drink responsibly, or when you feel really, really, really fucking shitty.
Also joining us, as always, on the matchup, our resident referee, Mark. Mark, we'll be getting your thoughts tonight, of course, on the match yesterday. We didn't get your thoughts yesterday, so should be interesting.
Was there a match yesterday?
There was a match yesterday. There was two matches yesterday.
Fucking ref was the best United player on the park yesterday, by the way.
It was a good game, finally.
Facts.
We have a ref, Michael Oliver.
Yeah, not too bad. Let's take a quick rundown through the results, first of all. We started out Leicester 1, Leeds 0, Aston Villa 4, Southampton 0, Burnley 0, Chelsea 4, Newcastle 2, Brighton 1, Norwich 1, Brentford 3, Wolves 0, Palace 2, Liverpool 1, West Ham 0. Sunday, Watford 2, Arsenal 3, Man City 4, Man United 1, and then we rounded out this evening, Tottenham 5, Everton 0. Lads, where should we begin? We should begin with Aston Villa, shouldn't we? Philip Coutinho.
Well, you know what? You said where would we begin? And I just wanted to say, can we please begin with Villa? Because I have to say, they were just outstanding. They really were. Coutinho, he got his goal, but really, he should have had a hat-trick in the first half. He was so unlucky. He struck the ball well. He controlled the game. He controlled the tempo. He looked like the Philippe Coutinho that Barca threw 100 million to get him out the door at Anfield. He was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. The play from Villa all round, some of the football, the one-touch stuff. You see Callum Chambers sticking on the outside of the right foot, ball over. Coutinho, one touch straight in, and Douglas Luiz in there. But all the 1-2s, the little triangles they created, the pace at which they played at was absolutely fantastic. It really, really was. I have to say,
and against a Southampton side in form,
decent Southampton side, yeah.
Yeah, they probably look like they just reached that, just that point where we've done so much over the last few weeks. We just don't have that performance in us today, unfortunately. But you still have to take advantage of it. And Villa were, full value for their victory. And I got to say, they were a joy to watch. They really were.
They were firing all cylinders, weren't they? Like you're saying, Ings, Watkins, There's some players, though. You look at even McGinn. I think he's a great player. Ramsey's there.
Isn't he? He's the engine in there at times.
Young Ramsey's there. He looks a player for the future, and like you said, Coutinho was just on form, isn't he? He's on fire, like that player that left Liverpool that time.
Yeah, at 2-0, Darren, they went and they gave a shot of Ralph on the sideline. He looked as if he'd been on the sauce on Friday night. He looked hungover. The hair was all over the place.
I'd say he felt like it as well, because they were getting absolutely battered, and he wasn't on the battery. They were getting battered. Like Foster was making saves. They were hitting posts. It was going inches wide here and there. At one stage, I was like, is this defense versus attack? What's going on here? They were just so one-sided. But listen, we knew it was going to happen. We called it. They made the change. They took out Buendia. They went with the 2 up top with the 1 number 10. And since then, they're unbeaten and they're scoring goals to beat the band.
Yeah, certainly does a case for Gerrard.
Gerrard I can't say I'm surprised.
Doesn't he? Gerrard always is a beer. Chelsea, Mark, 4-0 against Burnley.
Yeah. I thought it might have been a bit closer. Because you know what Burnley are like at home. They're a tough team to kind of break down and stuff like that at times, and they try bully and stuff. But no, Chelsea did well, 4-0 win. And
Burnley, in fairness, they created a couple of chances.
They did, in fairness. But like you're seeing the quality just between the two teams, reflected in the scoreline, didn't it really?
I don't think it did, if I'm honest. I thought it flattered Chelsea a lot, I have to say. Like, I don't think Chelsea fans could have had an issue if they went in 2-0 down at half time the other day. Burnley were very, very good. Just in that last moment before scoring the goal, they faltered. But I mean, like they really, really battered Chelsea in that first half.
And they did, and in fairness, like I said, they will do that, especially at home. They'll create chances, they'll bully off the ball. But I was saying the difference in quality is Chelsea took advantage of those chances, those mistakes Burnley made at the back. Where Burnley couldn't do that against Chelsea. So, that's the difference between a team at the top rather than at the bottom of the table.
Well, it's a team that spent 40 million on attackers versus a team that spent 400 million on attackers.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
True,
and that doesn't also obviously work out all the time, but the quality was there. Like Reece James was phenomenal. He really, really was. Looked back to his best. I thought Kante was excellent as well. And then you have options in front of him. Havertz, he's a smashing footballer, the kid. He really, really is. He knits the whole thing better. He knits the whole thing together better than any of the other lads. I mean, when you go with Lukaku's your focal point. He's where everything's going to go through. When Havertz is in there, he plays as that cog in the wheel, and he keeps everything ticking around him. And you can only do that if A, you're a very good footballer, and B, you're a clever footballer. And he looks like both. I'm really looking forward to seeing him, injury free and getting a couple of seasons out of him at Chelsea, because I think he's going to be a joy to watch.
Yeah, I think that blend of him, Mount, and Pulisic is a really nice blend, isn't it? Compared to when you have Lukaku out there, who's this big centre forward with maybe a Werner playing off him or something like that. You know what I mean? It's a kind of a mismatch where you look at the three boys, they kind of play a similar type of style, and they interchange beautifully as well to create the spaces for the chances and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely. Darren, we were talking on the preview the other night, and we spoke about one man who hasn't been firing at all. One Ivan Toney. Well, he proved us wrong at the weekend, didn't he? Cropped up with a few nice goals.
Well, he scored 2 penalties, let's not forget now. So, we're not going to throw bouquets at him for putting
his movement and his other chances that he had.
He absolutely did, yeah. And you know what? Listen, they talk about what goals mean to strikers. And when that first goal went in, he looked a different player. That little bit of confidence, just taking that first chance, and all of a sudden, again, the snowball started rolling for him. And he just thought, I can do this. I know what this is like. And he looked a different animal completely, But I have to say, and something we spoke about previously, Christian Eriksen, a Rolls Royce in the middle there for him, wasn't he? He really was. He was involved in all of the good stuff. He just has such a great eye for a forward pass. That incisive pass which got Burnley on the front foot and got Norwich turned, and then obviously caused a bit of havoc for the penalties and stuff like that. And Ben Gibson needs to look away now. Jesus Christ.
And that's like, just before we came on air, you were talking about Kane and the goals he got. A lot of them had Christian Eriksen's assists on them as well.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
It just shows you the quality of him.
He was an integral part of Spurs, and as long as he is at Brentford, and personally speaking, I don't think he'd be there that long. Maybe only till the summertime, but he'll be an integral part of that Brentford squad while he plays games.
One of my favourite moments at the weekend was when he clashed.
I know it's called.
When he clashed with Brandon Williams, your own Brandon Williams, and Brandon Williams was about to chin him, and then he realised it was him, and he hugged him, and they both got up. And I thought it was just a mad moment, wasn't it? It was crazy.
It was, but I thought Eriksen looked not uncomfortable with it, but when he got up off the ground, he was a bit mortified. He was going, he'd have smacked anyone else. It was only because it was me that I got away with it.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Christian Eriksen for the rest of the season now can go in studs up on people, and it'd be just okay. Don't worry about it.
It's all right, pal. Don't worry. Do you know what I mean?
Good,
yeah, absolutely.
Some lad running around sticking him one right in the chest, and he's just imagine.
Yeah, but who's going to be the guy to stick one on Christian Eriksen? Like, he'll get booed in every single stadium he makes it between now and the end of the season. He puts a tackle in on him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. You'd be looking at a Diego Costa or something, that type of guy who wouldn't care.
Pantomime villain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Who else do we want to look at? Who would be a good one? Leeds. We should mention Leeds. Jesse Marsh. They put in a great shift for him the other day, even though they didn't get the result. And I thought this would be a game where Leicester would find a few goals, especially against that Leeds side. But certainly they rocked up and they put in a shift for him, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I thought they were excellent, I have to say. You could argue a case that Kasper Schmeichel was probably man of the match. And when you do that, when the opposing keeper is man of the match, you've done well. But I think, as you say, the shift work that was put in by everybody. Everyone pulled in the same direction. There was a couple of lads that maybe weren't at 100%. Now, I still think Rafinha was a little bit off it, but I enjoyed even the way, you know, he orchestrated the huddle at the end of the game and he spoke to them and stuff like that. You know, we all give the Yanks a little bit of criticism over soccer and stuff like that, but let's be honest, the guy looked like he had put an awful lot of knowledge into those Leeds players' minds, but they looked a different squad and a different team in comparison to Bielsa ball the week before.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed at the end of the game, there was a number of lads on the bench at Leeds, and he had to go over and tell them a few times to get off the bench and come out. One of them was Patrick Bamford, and he wasn't impressed by it at all. It was caught on camera, like it was interesting. He had to actually tell the guys, get the hell out here, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I think the lads were happy to turn and go down the tunnel. But he was having none of it.
And in fairness, I thought they were well drilled. But when you think of it, he probably only had them training since Tuesday or so. So the job that he's done in those few days, you can see the difference already. So
that's what Darren said that to me on Saturday. He said after 4 days, that's a phenomenal performance.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of hope there for Leeds fans, isn't you?
Yeah, we move into Sunday then. I won't dwell on the Liverpool game. It was about getting 3 points more than anything.
Just before we leave Saturday, can we mention our boy Eddie Howe?
Oh, yes.
Sorry, I forgot to mention Eddie Howe. Yeah, the train's still choo-chooing along there, isn't it?
Super. There's one of the fathers in the club is a Newcastle fan, you know, and he came down today to drop the young one, and big smile and happy face. And I says, "You're a happy man." He says, "Yeah." He says, "It's still going." I says, "Did you think," I said, when Howe came in, that it was going to go this well? And he said, "Look, you've always got high hopes that things will change and stuff like that." He said, "But I suppose when you go a couple of games without the victory and it's not an instant impact, you can think, oh, have we made a good decision here?" It was a slightly slower burn than he felt it was going to be, but it's paying dividends now, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was watching the game on Saturday. Like Ryan Fraser could have made it 1-0 after 2 minutes. They just were going hell for leather from the start. I think they're unbeaten in 8 games now in the Premier League, you know.
Right.
And then the other side of it, you look at Brighton, it's probably a bit like Southampton. They're probably running out a bit of steam now at this stage of the season. They haven't been the same team for the last few games, what they were then the previous 7 games. So, but fair play to Newcastle. They're playing some really good football. And like I said, Ryan Fraser, Maxim, my mate, Sam Maxim, come on. He could have had a goal or two, a few chances created. Joe Willock had a good game as well. So fair play to Eddie Howe. He has them playing some good stuff.
And the inspired positional change. Because, I mean, man of the match at the weekend was Joe Linton again.
Yeah.
As he was against United.
Yeah.
And he pushed him back into that central midfield role. And, like, he's looked like a Brazilian since he put him in the role. And before then, he looked like a Slovakian or something, because he just wasn't, like, you know, you're like, what's going on here?
He was the forgotten son for months.
Absolutely. I mean, and devoid of any sort of confidence in front of goal and stuff like that. But now that's not his job. Now his job is work rate, creation, tempo. And the guy is absolutely living up to his hype now. He really, really is, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move quickly into Sunday then. Watford 2, Arsenal 3. I don't think we'll see 2 better opening goals in a Premier League fixture than the Arsenal one and the Watford one. That overhead was sensational.
Yeah, it was a smoking hot, wasn't it? Absolutely smoking hot. And actually, I had the boy Saka in my fantasy football team. So I'm watching the game, and, you know, you see the little interchange. Cedric into Odegaard, Saka back into Odegaard. Touch, goal. You're thinking, oh, happy day, a few points on the thing there. And I'm looking at it going, that could have been an Arsene Wenger team, the way that goal was scored. And the way everything just was one touch and it flowed, and there was positional sense and was space created. I was like, that was amazing. Yeah. And then, of course, like a couple of minutes later, they equalised. You're going, no, it's definitely an Arteta team. But in fairness, it was a screamer. The boy Hernandez, it really, really was like.
Yeah, that goal. Remember that goal Arsenal scored against Norwich all them years ago?
The Jack Wilshere goal.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it just reminds you of, like, the passing back then, like, you know.
Yeah.
And then with 10 minutes to go, they create drama that they didn't need of their own undoing then, don't they, when it goes back to 3-2, like, and then they have to see it out. They run to the cosh a little bit, but they seen it out, which is the sign of a team that's hanging in there and doing well, you know. Mark, we'll talk to you about the 4-1. Darren unloaded on us yesterday, gave us everything and more and all that we needed about
I've loads more, don't worry. Like.
Yeah, well, we'll let you chime in on Mark's comments. 4-1. when they talk about a game of two halves, my God.
It was, yeah. Now listen, like I watched the match reaction there this morning from you lads. I agree with everything. Like the first half, I thought we were decent. For the changes that he made, obviously the Ronaldo situation as well. But second half, the lads just didn't, they gave up. They didn't play at all. They weren't doing the basics, tracking back. He brings Rashford and Lingard on, and what effect did they have? Absolutely none. You see these comments coming out today, Rashford saying he's concerned about his playing time. But when he's playing, he doesn't play well. So why would you start him? He doesn't take his opportunity in games, like he should. Lingard, I agree with Azar. He's been out of the club since January in his head. He's still pissed off he didn't get that move to West Ham. He'll be gone free in the summer. He doesn't care. And you look at it, I agree. I was talking to my dad during the week. Like if you put some of the under 23s out there, they'll play for the jersey. They have that hunger and desire that these so-called superstars have starting out. But then they get a big salary, they get the fancy cars, the fancy houses, and they forget what got them there in the first place, playing football and enjoying playing football. So no, it was an absolute disgrace of a performance yesterday in the second half. But on the flip side, how well did City play? We've talked about United. Listening to the Sky Sports, you think it was just a bad performance by United, but it was probably one of the better City performances of the season as well.
Yeah, I suppose when you look at it, I mean, you're going into the Derby game, and you two guys are brutally honest as United fans, and Darren spoke on the preview as well. I clearly was hoping that United would get something out of it, but it's a different agenda with me because of Liverpool being in the title race. But the reality is, we know that City are levels above United at the moment. And in fairness, they're levels above most teams in the league. Even in terms of Liverpool, man for man, they're a level above us, to be honest.
Yeah, but you guys are playing on a par with City. Other than you guys, as we've mentioned before, what's after that? You've a picture of 5 managers up there behind playing for 2 spots. But I mean the quality from City and Liverpool is just streets ahead, and they are on that much of a different level than everybody else that this can happen. But don't forget, like from a United point of view, we've seen this all too often recently. Like I was at the 5-0 against Liverpool. We've lost 5-0 to Liverpool and 4-1 to City in the same season. Like as good as they are, that just can't happen at Manchester United. It just can't.
Yeah, I think the issue yesterday really was it wasn't the actual result, because I think most people would have expected City to beat United yesterday, and 4-1. It could have been 6 or 7-1. You might have had 1 or 2 more or something like that. But the reality is, it's when you go out there and you surrender so easily, and you're not up for the fight. And like they were saying yesterday, at one stage in the second half, you had 8% possession in a 15-minute block in a derby, and you're not putting it in. And it's
if you go out and if he makes a hunk of changes after half time, let's say you go 3-1 down, which is very plausible in a tight enough game. Right, you could be playing reasonably well and be 3-1 down, and you make a few changes where you push a bit too much too soon, you bring too many attackers on the pitch, you leave yourself exposed at the back, you're picked off, it's 4-1, and you knock on the door for the next 20 minutes. It's not acceptable, but you can see how it would happen. That's not what happened yesterday. That's not even close to what happened yesterday. As you said, there was a 15-minute period in the second half where the percentages were 92 and 8 in the passing stats to City. 8%. Like, I think at their best this season, someone said they'd been up to 81% against some of the lower teams. Where Manchester United, they down tools. Yeah. Like, lads, stop running. Like Jesse Lingard, we spoke about obviously on the reaction yesterday and stuff like that. And for me, it was a massive, massive mistake allowing Jesse to stay. I mean, he should have gone out. We should have kept Donny instead and given Donny that game time. Because, I mean, if you look at it at this stage, Jesse's played in almost every game in the last 5-6 weeks. He's been getting minutes.
Mm.
And why wouldn't you bring a guy like Van de Beek on who A, has a contract and B, has something to prove? Lingard doesn't have a contract and he's nothing to prove because he'd need to be scoring hat-tricks every single week from now till the end of the summer for United to offer him anything. Do you know what I mean? And even at that stage, he's looking at it like he's working for Vince McMahon. He's going, well, it might go all right for about 3 weeks, and after that, I'm going to end up getting suckered onto the bench here again. So he knows what's coming down the pipe. He's been staring at the barrel at this point for a long time at Man United. But to have him go out, and I think we spoke about it last night. We think he got one touch of the ball when he came on the pitch. We think. Surely to God, you need to break someone's knee, and that's not. I'm not saying I want to see him do that, but I mean there has to be that in you. You have to have that level of personal, respect for yourself, and where you're going, I'm not fucking allowing this shit to happen. Yeah. But they didn't.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of things that were highlighted yesterday. I know Kane focused in on a few things, and 2-1. Yeah, I think looking at it yesterday, there's a couple of issues that came up, I suppose. And I know Roy Keane, he creates this stuff as a pundit and stuff like that and all, but at halftime you're walking off at 2-1, you've put in a reasonable shift. Like you've competed with them. Even though that they're kind of, they've another level to go up and the quality is there. But he mentioned like the fact that Bruno was walking off at halftime having a grand old chat with Kevin De Bruyne and all, and he was saying like, what is this? You know what I mean? And then you look at the two post-match interviews. You have Harry Maguire talking about having to be better in possession, 8% versus 92%. You have to have the ball to be better in possession. You have to want the ball and have it. And then you've Scott McTominay talking about, I think he mentioned something like, we need to do a bit better up front. And you're there going, yeah, you do need to do a bit better up front, but you might need to do a bit better in midfield, mate. And it's just it's a weird collection of stuff that's going on at the moment, isn't it?
The dynamic is weird, and listen, I don't necessarily disagree with Scott because I understand where he's coming at this. If you get the ball into the final third of the pitch, and every time you get it there, it comes back, they're creating waves against you, and you're having to defend in waves like that, and through midfield and through up front. You've got to have somebody that when you put the ball up front, they can hold the ball and try and involve others. They can take the ball and run channels. You know what I mean? Receive the ball in different areas. We hadn't got that. We had two centre midfielders playing as makeshift strikers yesterday, and it was shocking. And when you look at the money we've spent over, the last 8 years since Fergie left the club, for us to go in to the season with an aging Ronaldo and an aging Edison Cavani as our two only real centre forward options. It's a shambles. It really is. It's nothing short of shambolic. No, it doesn't. When was the last time we shelled out 80, 90 million on a striker? We bought Lukaku. It didn't work. We got him out, which was great to get the money from and stuff like that. We haven't replaced him. We had Audi and Ighalo, we had Cavani, 2 free signings. You got Ronaldo in on the cheap as well. Again, we haven't bought the cream of the crop.
We tried to wedge Martial and Rashford up there at times as well, and it just hasn't worked either, hasn't it?
Hasn't worked at all, and at the same time, City, who can genuinely play without a number 9, are trying and Jemmy bar Harry Kane out of Spurs, and I'm going, it's not a no-brainer for us. Why weren't we in that conversation? Why weren't we in a conversation? Why didn't we go to listen? And it's going to sound as ludicrous as it'll sound tonight. But last summer, why didn't somebody decide we need to go to Bayern and ask them how much it's going to cost to get Robert Lewandowski out in there? Do you know what I mean? And try and put ourselves in the conversation. We need to go to Spurs and say to Daniel Levy, Harry Kane, what's going to cost us? That we did that at one stage. Right now, we don't do that. We play overinflated prices for bang average players, and the really, really good players who we should be in with a shout with, we don't look at. And this is nuts.
At that time, we got a Gallo. We were linked with Josh King as well back at the time.
That's right.
That's what we were linked with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what got me more pissed off watching it back last night was you seen the performance in the second half, and then you seen the performance of the likes of Peterborough against City, the likes of Everton last week, the likes of a 10-man Arsenal against Man City. They gave them a game. We didn't do that. That's what pissed me off like the most.
Well, that was the point in the reaction I was making last night. If you look at those lesser teams that have gone up and gave them a bit of a go. They gave it a try. They held them out at times for 60 minutes and stuff like that. And you look at United, the way they just folded over and said, something, we knew we were going to get beaten today, and we just
and I was listening to Daza yesterday. I totally agree. I was watching the Forest and Huddersfield game there, the FA Cup game. James Garner had an unbelievable game again. You know,
quality.
We have to be getting
quality.
him back in there in the summer, and just there's like Brandon Williams could come back in. You know, there would have been a case of I agree with you playing the three centre halves yesterday. If you had Tuanzebe there, you could have played him with a Lindelof and a Maguire. You know, that type of way. So there's these options that we have to look at, but we need.
I'd have even gone in with Eric the Cannibal. I really would.
Yeah.
I'd have taken Calamity Jones and I'd have stuck him in there. Once Varane, who is our best centre back, isn't available, be it for injury, suspension, whatever it is, we shouldn't be trying to play football with two centre backs unless we're playing fucking Norwich at home. Because other than that, we don't have the centre backs to cope with. And that's another massive slur on the club and how they've spent money over the years. Do you know what I mean? And how the promotion has happened from within. I don't believe there's any possibility Axel Tuanzebe is any worse than Harry Maguire. I don't believe it. I don't think it's possible for it to be any worse than Harry Maguire. I really don't. He's an athletic kid. He's strong. He can head the ball. He's good with his feet. He needs games. He needs confidence, and he needs someone to back him. You know what I mean? And that's what Fergie always did. Fergie always backed his youth. Now at United, we're not backing our youth. We're questioning our youth. And we're farming them off here, and we're farming them off there. We're farming Brandon Williams out in the hope that whoever's looking after that Norwich team, be it Daniel Farke or Dean Smith, gets a tune out of him. And then we go, do you know what? This kid can play. We'll bring him back into the fold now. We should be able to surmise that ourselves.
Absolutely. We're becoming a bit like Chelsea, aren't we?
Absolutely. It's ridiculous. Like,
you're using other clubs to do your donkey work, really, aren't you?
And the other thing Mark's mentioned about Chelsea there, the thing about Chelsea is Chelsea did it cleverly. Chelsea took a lot of younger players, took them in, created more of a profile around that type of player. And if they didn't make it into the first team, they shipped them out for decent money, which they then reinvested into the academy or back into the first team squad to keep the ball rolling. We don't do that. We lost the boy Rashawn Williams to Shrewsbury for 250 grand. And at one stage, he was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. Yeah. And 250 grand, he walked out the door.
The also cleverness of Chelsea as well. They put in brilliant buyback clauses for these players as well. So they took free transfers left, right, and centre. Juve do the exact same thing. They're anyone worth tuppence on a free deal, Juve will take them in, show a little bit of what they can do, ship them out the door in 6 months for 20, 30 million, keep the ball rolling. It's clever business management. FIFA are going to put a stop to it. You know, they've brought in the new rules surrounding it and stuff like that. But until now, it's been go Galapagos with it. And some clubs have known how to do it and others haven't.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds anyway. And I think Darren's point last night, I thought was a brilliant point where he said maybe you should just use the last 10 games of the season as a litmus test and bring in some of these players and see how they fare out and stuff like that.
I would. Absolutely. Like, what have you got to lose?
You've nothing. And especially when you consider the position we're in. If we finish 8th, it's a blessing anyway. So, you know what I mean? Exactly. That's honestly what I'd be doing. I mean, there's certain players in the squad, we're going to keep. You know, David De Gea stays, right? I think Diogo Dalot stays. I think Alex Telles stays. I think Victor Lindelof stays, right? So if you want to integrate players and put them in with lads, I'm fine with that. I've no problem seeing the boy Will Fish alongside Varane or alongside Lindelof.
Yeah.
Is he good enough to make the bench? You know, this is what you have to do. There's no point going in and watching them when we're playing a preseason in America against, the Dallas Bleeding Mavericks, and we all look like fucking the Harlem Globetrotters. You know what I mean? There's no point in that. That's not going to work. And that's confused us a number of times where we thought we had ballers in our hands. When we put them in against actual football teams, we realised actually they're not great lads. Let's ship them out again. We said, look what we've done with Donny van de Beek. We've sent them out. Now he's been exposed to Everton. So now any chance we had to get any sort of money from is dwindling fast. Like when he comes, he'll end up he could end up with the likes of Crystal Palace in the summer for about 16 million. And if we get 16 million from him, we fucking take our hands off and thank the Lord Jesus for it.
Yeah. It's a bewildering situation, really. Quick talk quickly about Chelsea being up for sale. Mark, thoughts?
Yeah, well, it has to be done at this stage. He has to pack his bags and get out of England, doesn't he? What's it, 2 billion or something they're talking about, is it?
Somewhere between 2 and 3 billion, but I think he has hasn't he got about something in the region of 400 or 500 million in property as well, and all sorts of stuff. What's your general feeling on? I mean, we did an episode on Roman and his legacy and stuff with Ian and stuff like that. We got very emotional on the episode and stuff like that, and you can understand why. But what's your feeling on this guy? This is a guy who's come in, who's been. I know we don't have the detail of the wealth and the money and how it's accumulated and all that. We don't have the black and white on it. But I mean, this is an owner who's come in, who's been a fantastic owner for Chelsea, who has supported them out of his own pocket, left, right, and centre, bankrolled them basically. It brought them back into a situation where they were relevant at the top table of football, both in the Premier League and in Europe. Brought a lot of success. I think 21 trophies over 19 years or something like that. So a trophy a season minimum, nearly, you know. And he's done so much work over there in terms of charity and stuff like that. You know, I think they were saying the other day something in the region of 200 million or something has gone into UK charities from him and stuff like that. And he supported all the NHS with the hotels and the properties and all this kind of stuff during the pandemic. And like, he seems a genuine, good sort of natured guy who's a football fan, who had the money to do what any of us would love to do if we had his type of money. I'm sure if you guys had his type of money, you'd love to own Man United because you're fans of the club and stuff like that and all. But you know what I mean? And I'm just wondering, he seems to be getting vilified now, and this whole war has broken out. And, you know, we stand with Ukraine. There's no doubt about it. There's no question of that. But he seems to be getting ousted out of the country like some, I don't know. It's hard to describe it. What's your thoughts on it overall in terms of?
When we first heard about it, you kind of think there's no smoke without fire, really. You know, that sort of way. Obviously, he came in, bought it off Ken Bates when, at the time, Chelsea were probably on the cusp of winning something kind of like similar to what Spurs are now, but just can't possibly get over the line. They have the players, but just can't get over the line for whatever reason. And obviously, from a footballing point of view, he seemed to always back managers that he had there with in terms of investment and getting big players in at the right time. But there's always going to be that question of, you know, him and Houghton and Links. And so for that reason, you know, you read stuff, he was an enabler for Houghton and this, that, and the other. And I know Ian was saying that was proven in the court of law about, but listen, anything can be bleeding proven in the court of law if you have the right people, like, so.
And if you're paying no fucking money for it.
That's exactly it. So, but listen, he's doing the right thing now, selling the club. Sorry, Daz, go ahead.
No, let's just look at this logically here, yeah? So, all is rosy in the garden, yeah? The Brits are investigating him for A, B, and C, and he's cleared because, you know, you need to pick your battles, and that's fine. The war breaks out. You know, all these stores and stuff, you know, Nike pulls out, IKEA pulls out, MasterCard, Visa, PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG, all of this starts happening, right? The Russian economy starts hitting the absolute skids. What's the first thing you do? You fire sale your assets, right? Chelsea Football Club got put up for sale because the Russian government are fire selling their assets, and they're telling Roman Abramovich to sell the club because they need the 3 billion in the door to keep the bleeding place going. There's no other, you know.
Yeah.
There's you know, like that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's just for me the whole dynamic of it when I was talking about it, like, you know, this war that's going on, it's affecting us all. You know, if it isn't the price of gas, or petrol or anything, like, it affects us some way,
especially for those on mountain bikes.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's mad to think that Chelsea, if you think about it, like 3 weeks ago, you know, they're standing in wherever it was and they're being crowned World Club champions. All good. They come home, they're at a Carabao Cup final. kind of all good. I know it kind of was reaching it at that stage. This war breaks out. Putin goes on a mad one, invading the Ukraine. And the next thing, the whole world has changed. He's trying to transfer this thing over to a charity trust. And they're going, don't think so. UK charity law ain't going to sit with that. And then it's all of a sudden, oh, I better sell this. Now, on the face of it, Chelsea Football Club to be bought is a great prospect to be bought in terms of its location, in terms of where the club is at the moment. It's not like a club that's struggling, that needs a massive rebuild and all this kind of thing, you know?
I would argue in the Premier League, Chelsea are probably the most attractive club in the league to purchase. I would argue in favour of that. And that's above my own club, Man United. That's above Man City and Liverpool. For what you've said, you know, for area code, for location, for you know, if I want to sell a jersey in Newcastle and I have to sell it for 60 blips, I can sell it for 100 in Chelsea because the boys all have Doremi in their pockets, so there's no problem. From a financial and from a physical point of view, Chelsea, for me, are a really, really good investment for anybody that goes in there. They are, and you know. It's sad that it's come to this because although, you know, as I said, I've explained my feelings on it. That doesn't take away personally from the job that Abramovich has done as owner. Yeah, okay, maybe the boys gave him the money and said, listen, go in there and run that. And this is how we'll park a few quid offside and we'll get it into the British economy and stuff like that. And that's fine. As an owner at Chelsea, he was phenomenal. He was absolutely phenomenal for the fans, for the players, and for Chelsea Football Club. He really, really was. And I don't want to get away from that. And I always like to separate my personal feelings from my opinion. You know, I think Roy Keane's an ass bandit. I really do. But he's always in the Premier League 11 because he's that good. And I can't argue with that. The very same thing with Abramovich. As an owner's go, you know, I'd have him up there with the boys at Leicester. And other than that, you know, there's very few of them might have a good word to say about. But, you know, the issue is where it came from initially, you know.
Like I said, he's always backed the managers. I remember he came in and it was 2003. I remember being on holiday and you'd buy the paper every day to see who Chelsea had just signed. You know, they were getting everyone in, Varane, Duff. I think Culaccini came in. That's Robin.
Arjen Robben came in.
I think Culaccini came in as well. Glenn Johnson. I think they signed. Yeah. So, but they were getting everyone. You're just saying.
As I said on the Roman episode that we did. You know, I had always, as a Liverpool fan, I'd always had to deal with United and with Arsenal being so good. And now I had this third cog in the wheel that I had to deal with, this other powerhouse that was going to evolve, and it just made things even so much more difficult.
And you know, the other thing that. Not necessarily that we're missing out on with this, you know, the next cog to come into the wheel was Man City. The newest cog to come into this is Newcastle. And don't forget, you know, when Newcastle were bought, we spoke about, you know, them backing the truck up and stuff like that. You know, we differed in opinion on how they were going to do things. But I mean, it's going to get to a stage where Newcastle are going to start becoming competitive in this league because they've got so much money behind them, you know. And again, there's another question you've got to ask. If we're going to ask the question about Russia, we have to do likewise about the Saudis. And we have to ask, you know, where this money has come from, you know, what type of humanitarian grounds and stuff like that. If you care about that. Now, me personally speaking, and you know, I'm not being controversial when I say this, I couldn't give a fuck. I really couldn't. Because as a football fan, I just want to see the best product being put out there as possible. Do you know what I mean? I want to see 5-6 teams fighting out for a league title, spending mega bucks on players. I want excitement. I want all of that. You know, whatever goes on in South Saudi Arabia, to be honest, it's their business. It's like when the bloke across the road closes his door. If he's giving his missus the slaps, he's giving her the slaps. I can't do anything about it because, you know, when he opens the door, they hold hands and they're smiling. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I suppose
it doesn't make it right. Yeah, and I'm not condoning anything. Let's just, you know, but stuff that happens behind closed doors happens behind closed doors for a reason.
Yeah,
but
there's always a part of you in terms of being a sporting fan that you'll want an element of a section of that sporting situation to be handled in the right way. I mean, we've spoke about it before, Darren, as well. You know, we all wear Nike gear, we all wear Under Armour gear. You know what I mean? We're not necessarily staying awake at night wondering where it comes from and stuff like that. And
that's my point.
and stuff like that.
If
And I think you can tear down so many levels on this to the point where you're left with nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I couldn't get on Chelsea. I couldn't get on the Saudis because I know how I live my life. You know, and I know the choices I make, be it, you know, when I decide to buy clothes, I know what route I go down. I wear certain brands. But do I know stuff about that brand I don't like? Absolutely. Do I still wear the brand? Fucking hell I do. So, you know what I mean? I can't live like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
and I can't question. And who are we to question? And I can't question every single thing. You know, that's if we start doing that, sure, we're not gonna have an awful lot of time for anything else, are we? You know, and
you'll also go around in a circle having an interest in nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you have to have a certain interest in something, I think, you know, like it's just it's a real difficult one to call. And it's, you know, the thing about it when you talk about it and you talk about the Saudi situation, stuff like that and all, I don't think any club is immune from it because clubs have sponsors and sponsors have big companies. And big companies knows what it takes to become multi-billionaires and become huge organizations and all this kind of stuff. You know, lads wear Rolex watches, lads wear this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like, this all comes from somewhere. And at some stage in that chain, someone gets stood on. So you have to kind of just...
And you know, the thing that a lot of people won't necessarily, and when you say stood on, that's what's brought this and it's what resonated with me. You know, let's just say it was you know, it was the Walmart group that bought a football club, yeah? It's the same Walmart group that's putting all the small business owners out of business in the US that's taken over.
The mamas and pop shops, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's not necessarily that they're doing something from a humanitarian point, but to get to that stage, they've had to step on toes along the way somewhere.
Yeah.
And again, we're not judging jury here or executioner. Like, I don't do that. That's not me. Someone will look at me someday and go, does he go up or does he go down? Right? I hope I go up. If I go down, at least I'll be fucking warm. But, you know, other than that, I'm not here to judge people. That's not, you know, other than footballers and their shit.
It's more a reality check. It's more a reality check. You know,
it has to be.
You
fucking, you know.
Yeah, I think you'd be very hard pressed if you went into any of the clubs and you found out that the whole thing from the top of the branch to the trunk of the tree is squeaky clean and doesn't, you know, like it.
You won't find it anywhere.
You're not gonna
and I don't even think you'll find it with my favourite owners, Leicester.
Yeah.
And I love. I'll say this till I turn into the blue background there. I love the boys at Leicester. I absolutely love them. You know, 100%. But I can guarantee you, something along the way went down that those boys didn't cover themselves in glory with. You know.
Yeah. I've said it before. Listen, you don't become a billionaire or a multi-billionaire by not stepping on something. So it's the way it is. I've yet to find someone who's a multi-billionaire that hasn't trodden on someone along the way. So, what else we want to talk about? Eddie Howe we touched on. Man United, Hasenhüttl gone on the list apparently. Darren predicted this the other day. We were talking about the Man United manager situation, and he said he wouldn't be disappointed in Ralph next season. And all of a sudden we find out Ralph has been added to the manager's shortlist.
Is it called Southampton conceded 4? I'm sorry to read it again.
I'd say it had something to do with the dynamic that they had at Leipzig, which was Ralph upstairs and Ralph on the bench, and how well that went, you know. Listen, it's logical. I like to deal in the currency of logic because it works in my head. And it was a logical choice for me. Same way if we get Pochettino, we get Kane. Again, it's logical. You know what I mean? I'd happily take Hasenhüttl over Pochettino.
Definitely. Like, I'm not a big Poch fan. I've said it on this before. Ralph, he's a very good manager. He's obviously dipped his toe in the waters that is the Premier League, so he has a bit of experience there as well. And I like the style he's trying to play at Southampton, where, you know, he's limited in the players that he had, because obviously he lost out on Danny Ings and a few other players during the summer, and they haven't really been replaced. But because he's chopped and changed. He's had Armstrong there, Shea Adams has been there as well. So he's getting the best out of the players that he has, which I respect an awful lot.
Do you know the part that there's two major parts I like about him. I like the part that if it's not working with Shea Adams, he brings someone else in and it works with them. We bring someone out who it's not working with, and the guy coming in doesn't do that neither. So you're like, well, how did that work? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Nobody seems to be taking chances. And I think the other thing which I really enjoy about him is I think he sees stuff that not a lot of other people see. And that's what impresses me from a coach. You know what I mean? Like the boy Salazar, he was obviously playing in Spain. They spent 15 million on him. Some clubs looked, some clubs didn't look. Southampton bit the bullet on him. Kid's a fucking smashing centre back. He is absolutely smashing. And he has been every game he's played for them. You know what I mean? He's seen something in the boy Livramento. He's seen something in the boy Brozier. He sees players that will fit into his system. They don't have to be big. They don't have to be expensive. They're players that he knows he can get the best out of. We're crying out for that at Manchester United. Absolutely crying out for it.
Do you know what I like about him as well? And it's kind of something that I like about Rangnick as well. There's a kind of an honesty about them, isn't there? In terms of like, they can stand in front of a camera or they can stand in front of a press conference and they can call it as they see it without filtering through the bullshit. And I like that. When you listen to Hasenhüttl's post-match or pre-match stuff, there's a bluntness and an honesty and a directness and a bullet pointness about him that you have to admire about a guy. And I think it's weird as well, because you look at Ralph, who's gone into United, and not to dwell on him too long, he's gone in there and he's trying to give an honest assessment of what's happening and evolving. And he's been getting undermined at so many levels. Like you see yesterday, he was talking about, you know, Ronaldo was out injured with a hip issue and stuff like that. And then I think Ronaldo, there was something on Instagram saying he wasn't injured at all and his sister liked it. And, you know, he's just been, you know, Cavani trained for 3 days and then kind of didn't fancy it and stuff like that. And he's trying to figure out how you put this across. I'd say he's never been in this environment before, you know what I mean? But he's trying to be as blunt and as honest as he can, because that's what he's used to being doing in his career so far. And it's I see it in both of them. And to me, I think it's a positive trait in both of them that you don't see in football these days. And it's probably something that maybe a club like Man United, where they are at the moment, it's kind of what they need, a bit of truth and a bit of honesty.
You know who used to do a really good job of it, except tactically he was really inept, was Gordon Strachan. He'd come out to the interview, you know, and they'd say, well, Gordon, what did you think of tonight? And he'd go, we lost 4-1. What do you mean? What do we think? We were battered, like.
Yeah.
You know, and it's that honesty, and you need it. Like, I completely understand, you know, a manager that wants to go out and protect his players to a certain degree. But, like, sometimes you can't defend the undefendable. You know what I mean? You've got to go out and go, well, we're not good enough. We're miles off it. You know, we're not putting in the yards. We're not making the runs. We're not seeing the passes. The decision making is shocking. You know, and just put it out there. Yeah. Because then, to a degree, you're also throwing it over to the players to say, well, listen, I'm going through this, which is Monday to Friday on a training pitch. Either, you know, I'm not putting it across the right way, or you lads are deaf, because this isn't what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
You know, and at some stage, someone's got to hold their hand up and go, do you know what, actually, Gaffer, you're giving this a good spin. Maybe it's us. Maybe we need to do a bit more. And the big problem is, though, at United, I don't believe there's lads there saying that, or very many of them. There's some, you know, we spoke about it, the Freds, the Brunos, the McTominays, you know, the Telles, the Lindelofs maybe, but there's other guys looking around going, you know, I'm doing my best. Like, you know, I teach kids of a certain age, and I use this same trick with them week to week, and I ask them to score themselves on their performances. Not on whether they won or lost, but on their performance. Give yourself a score out of 10. 4. Is 4 a good score? No. Okay, come back to me when you have a good score. I don't care if you win or lose. Come back to me when you're getting closer to what you want to be like. Not just, we won a game, we'll go and celebrate. Where you could beat a really bad team because they were a bad team. You know, at times I prefer to see kids getting beaten because they learn more about themselves when they get beaten. But this United team, they're not learning much about themselves, you know, and they're making the same mistakes week on week on week. And that's frustrating, especially when you're thinking, I'm talking about, 8-year-old kids here. We're talking about, 25-year-old lads here getting 300 grand a week.
Do you know what it is, Darren? I think that United team are learning a lot about themselves, but I don't think they want to look into the mirror and see what's looking back at them.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of that as well. I think because I don't think any guy walked off that pitch yesterday and could look at himself in the mirror and go, you know something. I think they know. I think they know well. New Champions League format, lads. We're going to do a show on this: the Champions League versus the dreaded Super League. But we had two announcements in the last week. The Super League announcement came out, and certainly wasn't met with the disdain of the previous announcement. It seemed to go by. It seemed to be.
Depends who you spoke to, I suppose.
Yeah, but there seemed to be a general acceptance about the fact that everything that everyone gave out about, they've kind of resolved. That the underlying greed is kind of still there, but the underlying greed is there in both tournaments. So, but like there was no protests, there was no going in and wrecking stadiums, there was no postponing games. It was kind of like, okay, this is going to be open season. There's going to be a relegation. People can qualify, not qualify, all this kind of thing. And they kind of took away all the excuses for not having an alternative.
I think when they put it out was extremely important, though.
Timing.
They put it out basically at the beginning of World War III. So what are people going to complain about? It's times like now we're all looking in our own backyards and we're going, well, you know what? Maybe the windows aren't the one I want, and maybe the car isn't the car I want. But look at what's going on in another part of the world, and look at how lucky I am, and look at how lucky I am to have healthy kids, and for them to be in bed tonight, with heat and food.
Clothing.
And so I think the timing of it was expertly and executed. It really, really was. But as for the Champions League, the format looks shocking, if I'm honest. Absolutely shocking. Yeah, really does.
Like, you're adding 4 teams to make it 36. I don't know what you think, lads. It doesn't get interesting until the quarterfinals. Last 16 quarterfinals. The group stages are an absolute joke at times. And it's UEFA looking for more TV revenue. It's a money making thing as well. I was looking at
it's
it.
An extra 100 something games, isn't it? 108 games.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, if United finish 6th, they could still qualify for the Champions. 5th or 6th, they could still qualify for the Champions League. It's an absolute shambles. Like.
Yeah, it's
you know what? I'd actually, sorry to cut across you. You know what? I'd actually be more in favour of returning to the older format, where only the league champions get the spot, and 2nd to 5th gets UEFA Cup, and the FA Cup gets the Cup Winners' Cup spot, and in the first few rounds, PSG are going to put out the second team and beat fucking Hapoel Tel Aviv, and beat Molde, and beat fucking Rosenborg. But then they're going to get to the quarterfinals. And when you get to the quarterfinals, you'll have fucking City, you'll have fucking Real Madrid, you'll have PSG, you'll have Bayern Munich, you'll have Juventus, you'll have the cream from each league, and allow them to go through that format. We don't watch the World Club Cup with 4 teams from Europe, do we? No. Even though the standard would be better. We don't watch it because that's not the fucking format of the competition. If it's going to be called the Champions League, it should be for champions.
Yeah. No, I remember like the mid-90s, United be playing Gothenburg or Rapid Vienna, but a few weeks later you'll have Barcelona or Real Madrid or something like that.
But it's only because of the seeding. Because I think if you go back that way as well, you should take the seeding away and have it like an open draw, so you don't necessarily get to that point.
You've got to see it. You have to see it. And because the sponsors of the competition don't get involved unless you see it, because they're relying on those last 16 toys being the top 16 nations, being England, France, Holland, Germany.
But then it kind
Spain,
of still makes it a bit contrived, then, doesn't it? I know you're pandering to the sponsors, then, aren't you? And I know you.
Yeah, but in it, you need the sponsors because you've nothing without them. But it's in a far lesser and a far smaller dose than what we're pandering to at the
But
minute.
we talk about the romance of these things and stuff like that as well. And we talk about when we go back and we look at those old finals that we used to look at, the ones with Ajax in and Monaco and things like that, and all that were really cool at the time and stuff. And I listened to them making a point the other day. They were talking about I wasn't sure. I think Forest and Liverpool were either the holders or the champions at the time, and they drew each other in the first round of the old format or something like that. And I thought that was crazy, like, you know what I mean? When you think about what we have now, how things are so contrived, But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But it's amazing the way the grade shovel is flung over one wall to the other and stuff like that, and they're both literally the same, Let's finish up with a quick one, lads.
If my battery goes, I've only got 2% left. There's no charger. Just shout out there.
Well, we get you to show first then.
I do apologise to his viewers if we go. I love you all dearly, except Roy Keane. You're still a swine.
Well, before you go then, top 4 United, yes or no?
No.
Mark, United, top 4, yes or no?
I'd have to agree with Dazza. Arsenal are over us, 3 games in hand. Spurs have 2 games in hand, only 2 points behind us. We've tricky games. We still have to play the likes of Arsenal, yourselves. And I think, do we play Chelsea as well? I think, do we?
With Chelsea on the last home game of the season.
Yeah. So
which is our second last league game.
Yeah,
I spoke last night about we've got Arsenal, Chelsea, and Spurs in our next 10 games or whatever. The only hope we have of top 4 is to beat all 3.
Yeah.
But having watched what I watched yesterday and having reviewed it with a cooler head, there's no way we're getting top 4. That's not a chance.
And as you said, you'd rather rate than 5th, 6th, or 7th.
Yeah.
I think at this stage we'll probably finish 6th, and that lands us in all sorts of bother. That lands us in Thursday night football, and it lands us in Sunday afternoon, 2:00 or 4:30, and it's horrible.
Do you know what it also lands us in? And I was only thinking about it last night when you spoke about it. Thursday night match reactions. Not good. Not good. Relegation battle quickly. Any shocks? Could you see everything going down?
Possibly. What are they? What are they? 2 points behind Burnley, or a point?
I think it's a point.
I think it's a point. It's a point, and I think they're level on games as well. So anything could happen.
I think they'll just stay up, but I think it could go as close as it did in '93. Was it when they won in the last game of the season against Wimbledon?
Yeah, the big pitch invasion,
Graham Stewart and the whole thing, and I think we could be at that. Could be.
Leeds, you think Leeds will be okay with Jesse Marsh? Think they'll do enough?
If Saturday's anything to go by, they should be fine, because Saturday they look like a football team again, which was something they haven't looked like in a long time.
Just another quick prediction, obviously, before we go. The FA Cup quarter-final draw has now been complete. Who do you think? Who do you fancy now for the Cup?
All out the draw there, will you?
You've got Middlesbrough versus Chelsea, Southampton versus
Chelsea.
City.
So Chelsea, then City. Yeah, go on, next one.
Palace versus Everton.
Yeah, Palace.
And Forest versus Liverpool.
Liverpool. So then, depending on the makeup of the semis, I think you'll have the top 3 plus Palace in the semi-finals, and it'll all be who draws Palace.
Wouldn't be unlike Liverpool to draw Palace in the cup game now, would it?
And then let Chelsea and City have a go at each other, and you pick the bounds of someone in the final. Like, sounds like the fucking last competition he's just won.
Yeah, Middlesbrough must be looking, going, what the hell? Like, because we were after beating, we best Spurs, and then we get bleeding Chelsea. Like,
how much of a performance would it be for Borough to dump out United, Spurs, and then Chelsea, with the possibility of having Liverpool a semi and City in the final? That would comfortably be the best cup run in the history of the FA Cup. They could retire the fucking trophy at that stage.
But if Borough goes through, they're going to draw Palace in the semi, aren't they? This is the
And
way
get
it's
beaten
gonna
or
Well,
be.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Look at what they've drawn so far. Like,
Yeah, but like they're wandering around that kind of London.
Yeah.
There's
No, they were
Darren.
well. Like I said it, they were well worth their win on Wednesday night against Spurs. Chris Wilder's done a
Yeah.
very good job there. But yeah, I just thought him unlucky where they after doing it against us and Spurs and then get Chelsea,
Yeah, I suppose they probably would have preferred an away,
Yeah.
even away to Chelsea or something like that, to kind of have get that bit more sort of.
But yeah, you use
financial
Forest away, like I said, that might be a little bit tricky. But
that'll be an intense one.
Yeah, especially the atmosphere there tonight. I was watching it against Huddersfield. There was some atmosphere, especially because they're playing a championship team, but it just felt like they were playing a Premier League team tonight. The crowd were well behind them, and it's going to be a difficult game for you, I think.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if that ends up down to penalties.
Yeah, could well do.
Be interesting. But yeah, listen, pleasure having you on, Darren. Obviously, the conundrum of the battery, as so often happens on a Monday.
Next week, mashup is sponsored by the iPhone charger.
That's it. Yeah.
Send one to Dazzler, will you?
He has a bunch of them, but I don't know. His battery's shocking, similar to my own on the Android as well. Well, as always, this has been your Monday mashup. Pleasure having both you guys on. If you want to contact the show, the Upper Tier Podcast at gmail.com, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music for audio versions of the show. We're on Twitter at the _upper_tier, on Facebook and Instagram, the Upper Tier. Marky, we'll chat again real soon. Cheers, cuz.
Cheers, cuz.